Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast and live stream. I'm Jessie Lezak, CMO at BDEX, along with BDEX's founder and CEO, David Finkelstein. Good to see you, David. What's new? How's Two Segment doing? Also, I'm curious.
Good. Yeah, all's good. Been busy with the launch of Two Segment. Just a lot to do to launch a new product. And we've been busy with the announcement of LiveRamp's acquisition from Publicis. That's been kind of causing lots of ripples in the industry as well. So it's been a busy past week or so.
Awesome. I love that. And I look forward to continuing to learn more about Two Segment. I'm sure we'll maybe talk about it a little bit more. But great. So today on Deconstructing Data, we're excited to welcome on Kevin Wassong. He's the founder and CEO of Marketing AI. And he's got a lot of credentials. He's spent more than 3 decades helping brands navigate major shifts across marketing, media, technology, and advertising. His experience spans launching, I'm probably going to say this wrong. I should know this because I read this all the time. Sotheby's first online auction platform, building J. Walter Thompson's first digital organization, contributing to the launch of Fox Business Network, and developing advertising technology platforms while getting an Emmy Award along the way. And today he's helping CMOs connect creative performance, audience intelligence, and business outcomes through marketing AI. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's good to be here.
Yeah,
I love your music, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, everybody's head bobbing while they're
good. Snappy.
Yeah. Well, we're glad to have you, Kevin. And I'm going to have to ask you about that Emmy Award, but I didn't know about that. But would love for you to kind of kick it off with us first, though, and give our viewers and listeners a chance to get to know you a little bit of background about yourself. Obviously, what led you to create Marketing AI, and also what Marketing AI is doing for its customers today.
Well, really, thanks for having me. First of all, my background has always been this marriage of creativity and technology. I started in the entertainment business. And then I went into the digital media business, and that really evolved into something really powerful. We're talking in the mid-90s of having pitched and won the Sun Microsystems business. As a matter of fact, my first job in digital was doing a project with Mercedes-Benz, which was building their first touchscreen kiosk system for the automotive industry. And so we built that system. That's how I learned about Sun Microsystems and how we ended up pitching and winning that and starting Loan Partners in San Francisco before leaving to do the Sotheby's website. I've always believed in this intersection of technology and creativity. That's always been it. When I started digital at JWT, we took clients like Merrill Lynch and De Beers, Unilever, the Marines online very early on. And you could see where this industry was going. And at the same time, you could see this fragmentation kind of fomenting in the marketplace, which we still see today. It's actually just been amplified over the course of the last 20 years. And so one of the ideas that I had back then, which I presented to the board of WPP, was for really a machine learning solution. That was the idea behind it. Could we build something that would make marketing evolutionary, not revolutionary? That was the general idea. And so fast forward to 2016, when .ai domains became available, I started and acquired Marketing AI as a domain, but did not build it at the time because I found, after meeting with IBM Watson a number of times, that it just couldn't be built. So, we entered the pandemic, kind of retrenched, worked on a whole bunch of things. One of the companies that I had built during that period of time was called One Mobile, which was the first mobile advertising platform for the broadcast industry. And essentially, that was a technology that aggregated all of the mobile advertising for all the broadcasters in the US. So pulled all that together and allowed them to better monetize their mobile inventory. After leaving that, I started building Marketing AI really in late 23, but really early 24 is when we started writing the code for it. But the idea was this: there's no Bloomberg terminal for marketing. It doesn't exist. And the role of a CMO is akin to a financial advisor. You have dollars that you get, you have to invest it in asset classes, which are marketing channels, and you have to get a return on that investment. Yes, yet there is nothing in the marketplace that allows you to actually see everything that's happening in near real time. And so we decided to build that. That's exactly what we did. Recently I was meeting with John Hardy from the ANA, and he said, hey, there's nothing like this in the marketplace, which I absolutely love, because I do think that we're onto something that's incredibly important for marketers and brands. And it actually feeds into the topic that we're going to discuss today, which is that bridging the gap between performance and brand. That's the critical aspect of it. They aren't mutually exclusive, yet they've been treated mutually exclusive for too long.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I'd love for you to dig into that a little more. Let's jump right into that first topic, brand and performance marketing alignment. Tell us your thoughts on this.
So you have these camps that have formed in marketing, again, over the course of the last 30 years. You have creative and media. When I built digital at JWT, everything was integrated. I actually was the final holdout within WPP to not give up media, because I couldn't see how you could do really good digital marketing without really understanding or having the two inextricably linked, until I got a call one morning from Martin Sorrell, who said, Kevin, you're giving this up. You're going over to Mindshare and they're taking over your media. And at that point I said, I don't really know how to make this work in the ecosystem here. And it didn't. I left shortly after, about 2 years after that, because I didn't believe that. But when you think about performance marketing, I always say that our industry became obsessed with impressions, and they became obsessed with making impressions being the media placement. And when they ran out of impressions, they made more, which is why we had MFAs. It's why we have so much fraud in inventory, because essentially what you're doing is you're manufacturing impressions to monetize. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. And so we have this overabundance of placements with this oversaturation of media without any regard for what actually filled the space itself, which is what makes the impression. It's the creative that makes the impression. And so in performance marketing, it became about chasing impressions, chasing the clicks. And by the way, I think that's led to a lot of what I call the disposable brand. Brands that spin up spend a lot of money on performance marketing. If it works, maybe they move on. If it doesn't, they die. And that happens all the time. So if you were to think about brands that started out purely as performance marketing brands, well, by the way, I think the greatest one right now, and I don't mean it in a good way, the one that I'm kind of breaking down is Allbirds. Like Allbirds was a rocket ship as far as a performance marketing brand that started online. And now, by the way, they added .ai to the end of their name and decided to become a data warehouse versus a shoemaker. But if you think of Warby Parker and Bonobos and Allbirds and Casper and all of these businesses that were essentially disruptors, for all those businesses that I just named in eyewear, in mattresses, in clothing and shoes, there are every year almost 1,000 of these brands pop up as performance marketing brands. And by the end of the year, I'm going to say 995 of them are gone. And that's not the way to build a business with longevity. So the brand side of it has been this other completely removed piece that's been devalued in a lot of ways. When you need to be looking holistically at your marketing, you have to look at how the performance marketing is working from a creative perspective, how the brand advertising, the stuff that is not as measurable, is working. Look at it holistically to bring that together and build something that has longevity, that's going to move beyond being a disposable brand.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I don't think we ever really look at, and people don't really realize how many brands come and go and how quickly they come and go. And they're all like, everyone launches a copycat brand, right? Somebody comes out and they're like, oh, we could do that too. And they raise a bunch of money, they throw, tens of millions of dollars into marketing, and it doesn't work. And then they disappear and you forget all about them. And then there's, like you said, there's like a handful of them that actually, for one reason or another, it clicks and it does work. Or maybe it is that they just get that alignment right, where 99% of them don't, and most of them just sort of disappear. The question is, like, what's the trick? You know what I mean? Like, how can people that are out there today launching a brand saying to themselves, oh, we think we can just throw a whole bunch of money in marketing and get the name out there, and we're going to become the next whoever. How do they make sure that they succeed? They get that alignment and succeed, as opposed to being one of those that completely disappears.
It's a great question, and you've hit on the heart of the issue, which is, in my mind, curation and integration. How do you bring these pieces together? How do you manage them holistically? So if you look at a lot of the great brands that have been spun up actually by some private equity firms, by individuals, if you think of Bare Naked Granola or Poppy or some of the brands that I mentioned earlier, these are brands that did start very much as performance, but the people that were running it had a very strong connection and belief in building a brand, in building something that had meaning to consumers. And they were very cognizant of managing all of the pieces that come together to form the experience, that form the perceptions of that company. Whereas, a lot of these performance marketing firms, it's kind of crazy, have thousands of accounts. Not like, if you think about an ad agencies have maybe a few dozen accounts at most, but these performance marketing agencies have thousands of accounts. That's a lot of a little. They're spending $5,000 a month. They're not understanding how these pieces fit together, because their job is to make sure that what they do on Meta, what they do in Google, what they do in the Trade Desk, or whatever the platform may be, that they're getting the performance out of that platform, that they're hitting their KPIs, no matter what. And I can't tell you how many marketers have come to us when we've actually turned on our platform and they've said, hey, could you find this ad in your platform? Because our agency is running this thing and we've never seen it. And AI is actually accelerating the whole development of assets that marketers aren't even seeing. So think about that inability to holistically manage your brand, what your consumers are seeing. How do you build something without being able to see through the lens of the audiences or consumers? I don't get it.
Yeah, no, I think that there's definitely a disconnect there that has existed probably for the last dozen years or so, with all of the in the advertising space, and just people not truly understanding where their brand is being displayed, where their ads being shown. I think that there's been a lot more awareness, I'd say, over the last few years with regards to that, and people are taking brand safety a lot more seriously. They want to know where their ads are being shown. They want proof of it and things like that. And so there's more tech that's come about to be able to do that, because and I personally think it sort of triggered after COVID, because I think during COVID, so many brands were hit so hard that they had to become a lot more conscious of where they were spending their money, and the performance they were getting from it, from their marketing. And so I think marketing performance has become, and measurement has become a lot more in the forefront when it comes to brands. They're paying a lot closer attention to it.
Ooh,
I would absolutely agree with that. And I think that the biggest challenge that they have is an operational challenge and an organizational challenge. On average, a marketer has anywhere from 6 to 8 marketing partners. They're not operating alone. As a matter of fact, you might have seen today that Levi's has terminated their relationship with their primary agency, and they're not going to have an AOR anymore, because they want to be able to source creative from a lot of different areas. I think that's the fundamental challenge for a marketer today, is not having the visibility, is having to deal with the fragmentation, and having to figure out organizationally how to pull that together. Because there's I'll give you a perfect use case, which to me is a primary indicator of this, this fragmentation. If you think of social, the teams in most major marketers, the team that handles paid social is different than the team that handles organic social. And as a matter of fact, we were talking with a big global brand. We had gotten to the 1 yard line, and then the agency holding company killed the deal with us because we got a call from them and they said, "Hey, we'd like to meet with you." We didn't know what they were calling us for because they handle a lot of different global brands. And we got on and we said, "Well, why did you want to meet with us?" They said, "You're talking to our client." I said, "Perfect. You're a great user of our technology." I said, "What do you do for them?" "We do all of their organic." I said, "Awesome. So what do you do when you have a piece of organic content that's gaining velocity that you see is hitting a nerve and consumers are responding positively to it? How do you share that with the rest of the marketing ecosystem so that they can really take advantage of it?" And the answer was, "We don't." I said, I'm sorry, I'm confused. I don't understand. Why not?" "Well, we don't have technology to be able to share it quickly enough. We send it on our reports." I said, "Well, do you give it to the paid team so they can amplify it, beyond just boosting?" And they said, "Oh, we definitely don't do that. That's our competition." And I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize it was this bad. And it's that bad. It is that bad for marketers. And when I talk about it being organizational and operational, that's what I'm talking about. That's kind of a microcosm, but that is the gap between managing brand and performance more holistically and bringing these pieces together in a way that allows the marketer, it truly is, the sum total. It is pulling all of these pieces together, all of these touch points that are going to yield long-term results for a marketer.
100%. And just a second ago, we were talking about audience. So speaking of audience and our audience, I wanted to pull up a comment that's going to cover all of our faces here real quick. Sorry, I did it earlier, but we've got Michael Peluso on the chat saying, "Kevin is 100% right. Remember Dollar Shave Club, which has a digital first brand? They were hot 10 years ago. Now they are never talked about. I think they were the first, and some brands just copied that business model and never improved on it. Tons of brands rely too much on influencers to build brands." Interesting thought. Keep it coming. But do either of you have any reactions to that?
I do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. First of all, Dollar Shave Club may be one of the greatest ads that was ever made to establish a brand. The guy who shot that film going through the warehouse, it was absolutely brilliant. But what it did was this. I've never understood this. I've never understood. I think they were bought by Unilever, I believe.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
But the brand that he built was him. Okay. Razors, that's a commodity. I worked on Schick before that time. You could have 4-blade, 5-blade. We used to joke around, when's the 10-blade razor coming out?
Right.
And, but he created this whole ethos and attitude that just people loved. They loved that. And they never really built on it beyond what it originally was. It was a commodity product. You have to add something else. There's some other magic to it, to building a brand and building a business. It's not just about the tricks for clicks. That's not what it is. There's no longevity to it. And David, as you were just saying a minute ago, if you do Dollar Shave Club, there were probably $10 shave clubs behind Dollar Shave Club that just tried to emulate exactly what they did. And it became oversaturated. What's really interesting right now, and it's happening, there's been a major decrease in alcohol consumption. And if you think about, the major Diageo's or Moet Hennessy, these types of brand, conglomerates, part of the problem that they have is that, and tequila to me is really the proxy for it, is that so many of these niche tequilas cropped up and became brands in a really short period of time that they completely diluted the ability to kind of build sustained meaning behind whatever it was that you were doing. Jose Cuervo used to be like the only play in town for tequila. Now you have hundreds of tequilas. And so completely fragmented a category. You see it happening in whiskey right now. It's a real challenge. So, it's kind of interesting what's happening in that category in particular. But that is a category that a lot of those other brands were just pure performance, completely diluted the category, and then that the dilution of the category kind of negatively impacted all the brands.
So interesting.
Yeah. I actually know. I think I met him once. One of the founders of Dollar Shave Club, Michael Dubin. I actually knew his brother better, but yeah, that was some example for sure.
Good event for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thanks to Michael Peluso in the comments for bringing it up. Keep up the good comments. I'll keep bringing them up on the screen, but transition us into our next topic, which is creative as a performance driver. Can you kick us off, Kevin?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you're finding research today is coming out from a lot of different groups out there that creative accounts for more than 70%. I've seen up to 86% of the impact that your marketing has on the consumers. It's as simple as that. The reality is today that from a creative perspective, the development of creative has changed dramatically. We all know this, whether it's influencer, whether it's AI, the ability to develop creative incredibly fast is it's accelerating incredibly rapidly. As a matter of fact, we now have synthetic influencers who are doing product promotion and are building big audiences. So that's happening. We see that happening. What's not happening is an ability to look at what's really working, what's resonating with audiences that are relevant to building a community, because that's what a brand is. And how do we take advantage of that to build out other marketing channels, other marketing assets that kind of permeate everything that we do? So, to me, creative is the first thing that marketers should be looking at. A. B, they should be looking at it holistically. How does it work across all the touch points? And the touch points are not just relegated to digital. This is also something else that most marketers don't understand because everybody's so focused on direct to consumer. The reality is there are hundreds of brands out there that spend less than 70% of their overall budget on digital. The other 30, 40, 50% is going towards non-digital assets, retail environments, out of home, displays, events. As a matter of fact, MasterCard is a prime example where MasterCard does not do a lot of brand advertising anymore. They do a ton of events, sponsorships, activations, experiences that connect with their community that they've built. Marketers need to start thinking about it through that particular lens. And so we haven't been doing that. It's been devolving over the course of the last 20 plus years, but we're now, I think, coming back to that point of people understanding of, I have to bring these pieces together. I have to make this work. I have to make a creative that resonates with my audience, but permeates every touch point that we put out into the marketplace.
Yeah, I agree completely. And an interesting one is direct mail. And I feel like in conversations I've had, there's actually an increase in performance in direct mail over the last few years as well.
It's so funny you bring that up. I don't think there's ever been a decrease in that. I think there was a period of time where people were convinced that, we got to just switch everything to digital. But I still get a lot of direct mail, and it works. It because you feel it. It's physical. Those are some of the things that are really important to audiences. By the way, audiences that have money to spend. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. So, I oftentimes ask, as a matter of fact, going back to my earlier example, those brands that I mentioned, Bonobos. I don't know if you remember Bonobos when they opened their first retail store. I don't know if you remember, you went in there, you couldn't buy anything in the Bonobo store. It was purely going in and looking at the merchandise and feeling the quality of it, because they realized that people want to touch and feel this stuff. But you couldn't actually walk out of the store with what it was that you were going to buy. It was sent to you at home. Okay. Well, that's not the case. Now you have Bonobo's retail stores. Every mall in the United States has a Warby Parker, a Casper. They had Allbirds. Walk down Abbot Kinney in California and in Venice, and you'll see probably half the D2C brands that we all saw coming up, and they now have physical retail environments.
Yeah, great point. I know in the B2B space, in-person events, even small like micro events are becoming more popular, like large dinners or just reasons for people to get in person. Yeah.
Well, look, the amount of solicitation email that you get today, it's oversaturated. It's a real problem. Digital has become white noise in a lot of spaces. And that's why you get the tricks for clicks. We used to jokingly say, there was a joke when I was at JWT, which was the first comment from every brand that we work with is going to be make the logo bigger. So, these in-person events, these things that are more personal, that are more experiential, they do have a tremendous impact. And I think it's a way to break through.
Definitely. Well, earlier before we switched topics, we had another question from Michael Peluso. He'd asked, because you'd brought up whiskey at the end of that last topic, and he said, how much of that is also driven by the celebrity brand model for spirits?
If you look at, for example, Fenty is a great example of a brand. But if you read or look at the studies of that brand in particular in cosmetics, that is a phenomenal example of a group of people who knew what they were doing, who were professionals who built these brands, and they did it the right way. Versus, and I think the opposite end of that is, I do think one of the Kardashians had a brand that out of the gate was tremendous, but then just was BS, to be honest with you. There are so many celebrities today that have thrown their hat in the ring. If you look at George Clooney with Casamigos, honestly, that was hitting the lottery. He's the first to admit it. There are other celebrities that have spun up brands, but they've put together great teams of people to bring those brands together and parlayed that celebrity. And by the way, I love this question because Mountain acquired Ryan Reynolds' company. I don't know if you remember this. This is probably 2 or 3 years ago. They acquired Ryan Reynolds' company, but they thought they were acquiring an advertising firm that was doing Mint Mobile and all these other things, that Ryan Reynolds actually was an investor in all of those businesses. What they didn't realize is that they weren't buying Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds really resonated with it. He was the face behind it. He actually bought the business back from Mountain. So it was spun out of Mountain because it didn't work. I think celebrity, there's moments for it in time where they can really capitalize on it. He's a prime example of it. I think Casamigos and George Clooney is a prime example of it. There's no doubt that influencers and celebrity are going to be a great, let's call it an A/B test. Essentially, they're content creators, and you'll see whether they're resonating right with your audiences. And if they are, then you can build on the success of what you've done with them and move forward from there. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but I had heard somewhere that GMC had bought the rights to Will Arnett's voice. So, he does all the GMC truck ads. He's the voiceover. And by the way, supposedly he doesn't even do them anymore. It's like they used, 11 Labs to have his voice now.
AI.
Of course.
Yes.
Well, I think to your point, like the celebrities become the creative. So that's like the performance driver, like going back to like this topic, creative as a performance driver, without that celebrity, you're not driving the same performance, right? So the celebrity becomes the creative.
I would agree with that, David. And I think an example of the kind of opposite of that, I mean, for me, it kind of resonates, but they never went further with it, was Dunkin' Donuts with the Super Bowl ad with, what's his name? Ben Affleck. So, you have Ben Affleck, Casey Affleck, and that whole Boston crew being in these Dunkin' Donut ads, but then it never it never went beyond. It never was built into something that was sustainable longer term. To me, that's a one-off, and that's not. I think that we've gotten into this. Performance is a lot of one-offs, and brand is about integration and sustained messaging.
It's maybe a missed opportunity right there, right? Because if they had continued it and sort of made it a series of commercials that went on and on, they probably could have associated them with the brand, and it became, it could have helped.
I saw his point about Lego and Reese's as well. And by the way, you're probably right, but I think for the automotive industry, in terms of exclusivity on that side, I know that they've been doing some things with that. So it's kind of interesting to see how that happens. Plus, he's got a great voice. I mean, he's like, the perfect voice for those brands.
Yeah,
absolutely. And now you can put it in like 100 different languages too with AI. But I'm going to move us on. This has been such a great conversation. I can't believe it's already 4:47 Eastern time. But we're going to move into measuring meaning beyond conversions. So I think this is the topic I was looking forward to the most, because how do you measure meaning? What can you kick us off here, Kevin?
So, it's kind of interesting because we talk to clients all the time. And the way that one of the reasons why we built our technology, which normalizes performance data using color, is to kind of normalize the impact that all this marketing is having when the KPIs and the measures or the meaning of it is all different. Clients are still doing a lot of the more traditional, reach frequency and attitude and awareness studies. We hear that all the time. But at the same time, the meaning to me is about the sustainability of the brand. It's about the impact that the overall marketing has on the core metrics of the business. If we can bridge the gap between the CMO and the CFO, then we've done our jobs right. To me, the meaning winds up being the impact on the bottom line. It's as simple as that. And it's that impact long term. It's not about it being, what did I sell today? It's about how did I build a relationship with these consumers? We used to say in advertising, and I'm really dating myself, is that a lot of advertising is designed to reinforce decisions that we've already made. So there was a lot about that in marketing and media and advertising. That was always the case. But now we're really focused on how do we impact that measurability side of things? How do we impact the bottom line? How do we tie it back to ROI? So, I'm hoping that kind of answers what you're asking. We can dig a little deeper.
Yeah, we often have that conversation about, tying performance directly to revenue, or whatever is your KPI. Is it revenue? Is it profit? Whatever it is, making sure that you're able to tie it back to that, because we often have conversations on this show about the problems with attribution and measurement there, right? And I see you laughing, so I know you've been down that road before. But ultimately, because that becomes so difficult to measure, you need to be looking at where are your goals and what are you tying your KPIs to. And ultimately, it typically runs down to, revenue or profit, right?
So I'm going to say something that probably is going to be controversial for a lot of people, which is attribution is an unsolvable problem. Mm-hmm. It can never be solved. It will never be solved in our industry. If you think that you can solve attribution, you're chasing a ghost. We've been talking about attribution for 30 years. Now, I'll caveat it by saying attribution from specific platforms is absolutely quantifiable. It's fact you can quantify your attribution in a Meta, in a Google, in these different platforms. But as a marketer, the only way that you can really build out something that has longevity and measurability is by creating a collective experience. First, I believe, from that creative lens, then from the placement of it, and then from the response to that. So if I take away out of home from a program that I'm running in a particular region and I just run digital, part of your A/B testing is, well, what happens when I reintroduce out of home? What is the impact on the bottom line on the sales versus not having it? If you think about the .com boom, you used to drive up the 405. 101, 405. San Francisco. You would see the billboards of every technology company. It was all outdoor traditional billboard advertising that every technology company had along the freeway. It does have an impact. Those are the kinds of things that are really, really key to be able to look at those and understand what is and isn't working and see it over time and compare it to the past. The other thing is media mix modeling. I've talked to some of the largest global CMOs, financial services companies, others who are like, it's directional at best. It gives me an idea, but it's not going to give me the answer. And so this goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of that balance of art and science, of relying too much on data and analytics versus common sense. You got to be able to manage those things. That's the role of a CMO. That's the magic of a CMO.
That's true.
Yep.
And doing it in a timely manner. But yeah, I'm just making a little pun since we only have 8 minutes left. But anything else on this topic before we transition into tech stack real quick? Anything you'd sum up or any actionable advice you'd give the audience here, Kevin?
So, I think I really do believe being consistent in creative. I think that that is, to me, one of the top things that marketers need to be looking at. If you think about it today, and it's something that we've learned, is if you have kind of these 4 quadrants from a marketing landscape perspective, you have high spend, low spend, you have low volume, high volume. We find that marketers fall into each of those buckets. You have marketers who are high spend, high volume on the creative side. You have marketers that are high spend, low volume, and then you have low spend, low volume, low spend, high volume. Right now, that's what's playing out in the marketing ecosystem. And what we're seeing is when you have a resonance, when you have a consistent message, when you see things happening in near real time, build on those successes. Find the things that audiences are really gravitating towards and make sure that you start to use it across your entire marketing ecosystem rather than just focusing on the individual platform. So the notion of like giving one platform a credit card and some creative assets and them saying, we're going to get you your KPIs, that's not what this is about.
Radio never gets a fair shake and attribution. I love that, Michael. There's so many others. Drop in the comments. What are some of the other ones that are hard to track? I already said LinkedIn Live. You're going to come in on the attribution software as organic, but they heard about you on the podcast. No, I digress.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we got to move to tech stack. So Kevin, what are some of your favorite tools in your tech stack that empower you and your team?
Well, I mean, look, obviously playing around with the LLMs today, and this is the thing, most people didn't realize that these companies have been around for a long period of time. So if you're thinking about, OpenAI, Google's been working on an LLM for 20 years. I mean, they are a data ocean, and they produce new data every day, making it smarter. We're partners specifically with Google at this stage and GCP. I think our platform, and obviously I'm very biased, is that. But we work with a lot of different technologies that are integrated into our platform, whether that's Meta or the Trade Desk or LinkedIn. So when you think about what we're doing today, the types of things that we're looking at is, and I saw somebody comment pop up before about audio or radio. You think about Spotify and the ability to use audio at a much more strategic level. We see that coming into the mix and working really well with a lot of different marketers. But I'm not going to go super deep into tech stack and what we're doing on the back end with things, but there's a lot of really phenomenal companies and point solutions out there today. The problem with all the point solutions is that they're phenomenal for their slice of the equation, and we need to be looking at things more holistically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, such a great episode. I mean, we got into a lot of stuff. We did get one last comment here. I know we got 4 minutes. They want to hear more about your Sotheby's online auction days, as well as how you think specialty auctions will move forward in today's culture.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's interesting. So the Sotheby's one is actually a very funny story, because when we built the first online auction for Sotheby's, we didn't finish the software in time. And we had a piece of software that we were plugging into it. And we used to get on with the engineers who were based on the West Coast, and they would try and pull the wool over our eyes. So we actually hired one of their engineers as a consultant to sit there and tell us when things were BS or things were real, what we were being told. But we didn't get it in time. So we actually wound up building a piece of software that generated faxes at Sotheby's, and interns would catch the fax and put in the bid. That was only for the first auction. We finally finished that auction and built out that infrastructure. But when you're asking about kind of
fax machines,
I mean, the stories that I could tell you about certain things that happen in the digital world are just
wow.
are
How do you
absolutely
get fax
insane.
machine attribution? I mean, we were talking about all this. Like, how do you?
That's classic.
We
Fake
had
it
20
right there.
Yeah, we had 20 interns at Sotheby's catching faxes and then going to an email saying your bid has been received. We'll let you know if you won. I mean, that was essentially it. So, that was the first thing. But, look, it's been a really interesting ride. When you talk about niche auctions, there's a lot going on in the marketplace today. I love what you attribute fax machines to close deals. Yes. So, I love what's happening in this space today and the acceleration of it. But we have to really start taking account, especially when it comes to marketing, of all of these pieces to build. Look, if you're looking to spin up a business and raise a bunch of money and sell it to private equity or something else, great. But I do believe that there are a lot of companies out there that really have built brands for the long haul. They want brands that are going to last and are going to be enduring and are going to be meaningful in people's lives. Oftentimes I ask the question, tell me about the last product you bought online and tell me the brand. And people will tell me the product that they bought, but I'm going to say 90% of the time, they can't tell me the brand. They have no clue what the brand was. And that to me is just a failure by the ecosystem, because, I should be going back to that brand time and time again, build a relationship, build something sustainable. And, it's why we built marketing AI to do exactly that. Oh, I love that. Was on the launch team at Barnes & Noble. We pitched Barnes & Noble. This is 1998. Pitched Barnes & Noble. And the first question I asked, I said, so if I go to the store and they don't have the book, can you just order it online and send it to me? No, we can't do that. Why not? Because separate P&L, the store has nothing to do with barnesandnoble.com. I was like, this makes no sense. I said, so if I buy a book on barnesandnoble.com and you have it in a store that's around the corner from me, can I go and pick it up? And they're like, no, completely separate business. I go, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This makes no sense.
Yeah.
You need to put these pieces together. This is about a consumer experience under a brand called Barnes & Noble. You sell books. And I think another company came along and kind of cornered the online book market. I don't remember the name of it, but
maybe Amazon.
I don't even think they sell that many books anymore compared to everything else they sell.
No,
it's true.
Well,
it's less than a fraction of a percent.
Crazy. eBay built the platform he built it for his girlfriend to trade her Pez dispensers.
Yeah.
You love those stories. Those are the best. Well, this has been an awesome episode, Kevin. We've got some laughs from the audience as well. Would you like to let listeners know how they might be able to reach you after the show if they wanted to reach out?
Absolutely. So, our website is our name. That's the easiest way. But by the way, which I think most people know, that .ai is Anguilla. So, and it's just Kevin at marketing.ai. That's it. Feel free to shoot me a note if you have any questions. I'm always happy to talk. I love the marketing business. I love the notion of building a brand. And I'm a huge proponent of building value in brand. And I think that we see when it goes right. And we also see when it goes wrong. And, I think more recently it's been going wrong. Nike being a, kind of a poster child for a lot that's gone wrong. I'm really hoping that World Cup and the Olympics, that they really do a good job with it to take advantage of kind of reestablishing that ethos of the brand, especially Nike, who, we're talking, what was that, 1984 Olympics? Which
Oh
which
boy, I
was it?
don't know.
I mean, it was
No clue.
that's really where they launched, in the
Mm.
LA Olympics
Oh,
in the
really?
80s, and it's pretty amazing. And so, you know, do that. And it doesn't matter whether you're a B2B technology company or B2C, it doesn't matter. You have to build a community, you have to build a relationship with that community, and you have to sustain that relationship with that community in a really positive way that's consistent, and everything builds on top of it. Let's stop reinventing the wheel every time we go to market, and let's start building something that's evolutionary and powerful.
I love that.
Absolutely. Love that.
Great way to wrap up.
Thank you so much, Kevin. This has been a great episode. We really appreciate you joining us on the show today. And I think our viewers and listeners got a lot of great, deep insights from you. So thank you very much.
David, Jesse, I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I'll go ahead and close us out with the video. See you everyone next week. So audience members, we want to invite you to get powered by BDEX. Build authentic connections with your audience and drive unprecedented engagement. So just imagine harnessing the power of AI to craft your audiences that truly resonate with your brand, ensuring that your marketing is hitting the mark every time. We want to bring you closer to those marketing goals, and we're eager to guide you. So just visit bdex.com. You can click on the Talk to an Expert button and get powered by BDEX. Deconstructing Data is the show that makes data make sense. Every Thursday, David Finkelstein and myself, Jesse Lezak, sit down with industry experts to unpack how data really drives marketing. We do this in plain language anyone can understand. If you want real insights, real conversations, and zero jargon, tune into Deconstructing Data, live on LinkedIn every Thursday at 4:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Yeah.